let me suggest that you take a vacation from yourself. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. This week, Google had its big Pixel event and showed off a bunch of AI features in Gemini and called out Apple a bunch of times too. We're going to get into that. Apple's going to be taking 30% cut from those who support creators on Patreon. Google breakup might be considered by the Department of Justice, and a ton more. This episode is brought to you by you, the members that support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, and joining me, as always, who didn't go to the Google event, my friend Jason A10. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. It's good.
Have you went to the Google event? You've been to Google events, right?
I've been to several Google events. Yeah, I've been to several Google I/Os.
Oh, okay, which is
their developer event. But with Google,
right.
It's all, who knows? Like, they leaked everything before this event anyway, so it was like, what do I need to go for?
It is true. But you had an invite. You got invited at least.
And I thought about going, and I wanted to. It's just a little bit too busy. But at least this was not one of those times I'm like, yeah, I'm going, and then I just don't, because that does happen sometimes.
Which you did recently, I think.
Recently, and yes, a lot.
Yeah.
Like CES, I think I was planning to go to until I just didn't go to the airport.
That one was. I almost went with you because I actually had a press invite for that. Anyway. Well, we're going to talk about it because there was a bunch of AI stuff, plus there's actually new hardware, which, it's pretty interesting hardware. We'll talk about that. But first, some 5-star review shout-outs. Thank you to everyone who leaves us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can do it there, too. But me, 43665644, hope you know who you are. Rizzo's dad, 78, battery percentage on. Nobody's perfect. Turn it 22 times. Is that a reference? Do you know? Is that a... I've not heard of
I don't know. Is that like how long it takes to screw in a light bulb? Probably not.
No, you'd break the light bulb 22 times.
You probably would.
Right. Yeah, probably would. Anyway, if that's a reference, let us know. And Rel Nis, thank you for those 5-star reviews. Also, did you know the movie reference with the opening quote?
I was hoping you were going to ask, but then I was hoping you wouldn't ask this quickly. I'm going to go with Almost Famous.
No, it is a Total Recall quote.
Really?
The Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, Total Recall.
Okay.
Let me suggest you take a vacation from yourself, which Google kind of announced a recall-ish feature. Microsoft literally has a feature called Recall. I thought it was applicable. Thought it made sense.
You take
a
vacation from yourself. I'm Googling this.
Searching the quote.
All right.
Two other quick shout-outs from our community and listeners, which is fun. Last week we talked about how Apple should make a Fire Stick-style streaming stick, because Google Chromecast is killing the Chromecast, even though they're still doing a set-top box. But this is Saul BHP on Threads. This might be AI-generated, but listen, that's fine. If you want to make us AI-generated fan art, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And I will share it on the show. But I thought this looked pretty cool. He generated like an Apple Fire Stick, basically. But what I think is even more interesting is that Apple TV remote with the glossy black, but with the current button layout style. I know that would be a fingerprint magnet, but that thing looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not exactly the current button style. There's no, like, the volume buttons are not a rocker on the side, but there's less buttons on that one for sure.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
But
I thought it was, Apple, make a stick like that, sell it for no cheaper than your other Apple TV, $100, and you make bank. There you go.
Yeah, I think that I think it'd be great. I mean, I don't think we even have it on our list, but they're talking about the Mac Mini. Mac Mini.
Oh, that's right.
But I wonder if, like, you can't stick like a A17 in that, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, anyway, you can stick an M1. You can stick an M1 in anything. There's like an M2 in the goggles.
Okay, real question though. So nowadays, what would you actually need this for? Because every TV you could buy in the last, let's say 5 years, you can just AirPlay to it anyway.
It's the travel device. I bring it when we travel. Stick it in the hotel TV. You don't have to bring another cable because the HDMI port is literally part of the stick.
Where are you going on vacation that the thing you really want to do is watch stuff on your Apple TV in the hotel?
Listen, when
you need to pick better places to go on vacation.
You have a full day at the beach. Everyone's tired. It's 8 p.m. We put on a Zoo Tampa. We put on Watch a Fail Army. That's how we do.
I forget you don't watch sports, so you can't just turn the TV on to find something. But I promise you, there's always going to be either Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, some Ben Stiller movie, right? Always will be on at least TNT, TBS, something.
Hit or miss. Okay.
All right.
I refuse. But anyway, one other, Christopher Erickson actually sent us this thing, which looks pretty cool. This is from a company called Poolside Factory, and it is basically a Raspberry Pi that has been modded to fit into 30-pin dock connectors and make it an AirPlay destination. And the one use case most people would probably use is the old school iPod HiFi, which had a 30-pin connector. I think Basic Apple Guy still has one. And so you can actually stick this Raspberry Pi adapter in there. It's $50. Stick it in there, but now you have an Airplay speaker. And listen, a good speaker is a good speaker. You can use your iPod HiFi for an Airplay destination. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, originally I was thinking that the Venn diagram of people who have a Raspberry Pi and still have one of those speakers is it's probably a perfect circle, because the only people who, but I mean, like, I do think it's funny that like you're like, it's been modded. Literally, a Raspberry Pi is nothing if it's not modded, right? Like,
well,
it's
fair,
just
fair.
That's the whole purpose of it. That is pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it's got a 30-pin dock right there, and you know, I guess you could. No, don't do this. But, you know, there's a lot of hotels and stuff. I don't know why I keep talking about hotels. They still have 30-pin, like, radios or whatever. Anyway, I'm going to get off this.
You should never plug anything,
no,
30-pin or otherwise, into anything in your hotel.
This is kind of like a personal tech thing, but so if you go to a hotel and there's, like, one of these new style lamp bases or one of these, like, things where there's a bunch of USB ports, and you could, usually USB-A, you could plug a USB cable in there to charge your device, or use one of the bricks that you have carried with you. What do you choose?
You always use the brick. Like
that you brought.
You never, you never should plug a bare USB cable into anything that is not yours.
I agree. Never.
It just feels dirty. It just like, yeah.
Well, it's like, I don't know the wattage coming out of that thing. I don't, I trust my cables, but I don't trust what that thing's spitting out. So I want my brick in between my device, the cable, and the wall. So yeah.
Yes, your USB devices need to wear protection. It's important.
Anyway, moving on. Google Pixel's event. Stuck to there at the end. Pixel, the Pixel 9, the Pixel 9 Pro, Pixel 9 Pro XL, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, Pixel Watch 3, and Pixel Buds Pro 2 all got announced earlier this week. Google had a live event, which, listen, I want to give Google credit for doing a live event. You know, they did a lot, like, people on stage. They had some celebrities, I didn't know who they were, but they did live demos, even of their AI tools. Like, kudos for the live event. I still miss the live Apple events. But anyway, and the demos were a nice time, like during Apple events where you can actually like write stuff or like take notes.
Yeah, they don't move at a lightning speed because people actually have to walk on and off of stage. So yeah,
exactly. So new Pixel devices, they look fine. The Pixel 9 starts at like $800. Pixel 9 Pro starts at $1,000. The XL is $1,100, and then the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, $1,800. Folding phones are still very expensive. Very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it is basically two phones.
Yeah, okay, fair. And you got a big screen in the middle. I get it. Listen, I like the design of these Pixel 9s look pretty good. They flatten the sides, a la, how the iPhone kind of is now. And edge to edge, pretty much screen, very tiny bezels. Google does a nice job designing these phones. How do you feel about this camera bump? This camera bump is like seriously a plateau on the back of this phone.
I mean, you just have to pick, make your choices here. And I feel like I hate them all, so I don't care anymore. Like all of the iPhone camera bump is terrible. This is, I think, better than the iPhone one.
Whoa, wait a minute. Wait. You think this bump is better than the iPhone camera bump?
The iPhone camera bump is just this weird collection of circles that stick out from the back of your device in a corner. Like, at least this is... It's not technically symmetrical because...
Listeners, viewers, don't leave us a 1-star review for Jason's bad take here.
This is not even a subjective take. Objectively, all of them are bad, right? They're all bad.
I would say, I'm looking at this thing, which is a very elongated pill on the back of the Pixel 9 and Pro. Like, this thing is huge. It looks like the, who's the guy from Star Trek with the visor? What's his name? You know who I'm talking about, right? Cyclops.
There are several people, but yes.
Yeah, the old school. Anyway, this is like a very, very pronounced. Now, listen, if it takes amazing photos, and Pixels usually do, that's great. But if you're saying that camera bump is somehow less obnoxious than this, look at the iPhone camera bump. It's discreet compared to the Pixel 9 Pro. Look at that.
I have never been a fan of the three holes just sitting there. I don't know. I think they're equally terrible. All of them. Also, there is not a good way to do this without making your phone a quarter of an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. So,
although I take that battery, let's be honest.
3/4 of an inch.
Maybe not. Maybe not that thick.
Buy the Fold then. You've got the same thing. That's how thick your phone would be.
I don't want to do that. Anyway, I'll put a link to MKBHD's video. He did of course, he has all the devices. He did an overview of it, and I watched it. I like that the green color, although it's very pale, but he did that. I think kind of the bigger news is with all these devices, Google showed off a bunch of AI features, Gemini features across the board that are coming to all of these. Hardware-wise, there's no reviews yet. Even MKBHD was just kind of giving like initial impressions and look, and like, these are really great phones that no one buys. That's usually the Pixel story. It's like, Google spends a lot of time building this hardware, and they look great. They take great photos. They're fast, Tensor, G4, but no one buys them. Everyone who still buys Android phones just go with the Galaxy. So that's the Pixel story. But a couple features that Google announced that are, AI features. So the screenshots feature. There's now an app on these Pixel phones called Pixel Screenshots.
Yeah.
It's just screenshots.
Yep.
And basically it will try to parse all the screenshots you take on your phone to do a Microsoft Recall style AI. Like, whenever you search for something, it's going to pull it up. And I find it like, I don't know if screenshots is going to be the most robust memory of the phone of what I've done on my phone. Like, I don't take screenshots that often, but it's going to try and put it all together, a la Microsoft Recall style. Like, fine. I feel like, I don't know if Google touted this as like a unique Pixel feature, but Apple Intelligence, when it actually comes out, I feel like is kind of doing this. The demo that Apple showed off at DubDub was Craig Federighi saying like, "Oh, will I have enough time to get to my kid's musical if I take this meeting?" And it's basically doing this kind of parsing of, let's look at this photo. It had today's date. Here's the time of the musical. Here's your current location. And I feel like it's probably a more robust view of all that data. But the Pixel's trying to remember all the things. I mean, am I missing something here?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. This is the best thing Google's ever made. I'm not even kidding. Because,
really?
Okay, you got to walk around and talk to like normal people for a minute, because I promise you, if they show you their camera roll, it's 70% screenshots. Maybe not 70. Maybe that's a little bit much, but I bet you it's like 60%, high 50% screenshots, because people are like, oh, I need to remember this thing, or I want to do, and that's how people like remember things who don't use like to-do lists or whatever. They just take screenshots on their devices, and so their camera roll is obnoxious. In fact, that is the single reason that we don't use the family shared iPhoto library, because it would just be full of screenshots that my kids and my wife take, of a funny Instagram reel or a website they were visiting, or a
they don't
calendar
save it. They don't
thing.
use the bookmark save the real thing.
Steven, these are normal people. Like, these are not people who think about these things. That there's a built-in immediate way to do this, and that's you just squeeze your phone, and that's what they do. The problem is, then you have to try to go back and figure out what screenshot was it. I think this is like a real world use case that Google just nailed. And I don't know this for sure. I didn't spend enough time looking at it, which I guess is technically my job here, so I should have. But if it takes them all out of your photos library and only has your screenshots in the Screenshots app, this would be like manna from heaven, because that would solve two problems. It would make it easy to find the things you screenshotted, and it would clear up all of that clutter in your photos library. I'm serious. I think that I don't think that this is a reason to buy a Pixel, and that I think is Google's biggest problem, right? It used to be that you could buy a Pixel, like a flagship device, for like what, $500, $600, and now they're getting up there like $800. They're competing with the Galaxy and the iPhone. Yeah. I think that if Google really wants people to buy them, these phones, which are on par feature-wise with anything made, just like hardware feature-wise, with anything made from Apple or Samsung, they really are. Yeah. Like, they're great devices. They just need to be $200 cheaper. And that's how Google, because what is the reason for them to exist? Yes, these Gemini features I think are a reason, but it's not enough of a reason to get somebody who's buying, a Galaxy S, whatever we're on, 24, to switch over to a Pixel. And it's definitely not going to be enough to get somebody to switch from an iPhone. But I do think features like this, they actually make the experience of using the device better. Sure. And I think we should be all for that.
For sure. And I'm curious how Apple Intelligence will treat that. They use an example at DubDub of actually taking a picture of the musical program or whatever. But if you take screenshots, there's data there that Apple Intelligence could parse.
Sure.
And I'm still on the iOS 18.1 beta. Just throwing that out. On my main iPhone. I didn't downgrade my iPhone. I downgraded my MacBook Pro because I didn't like it. It was too buggy.
It's fine, dude. It's not going to catch on fire any sooner than the Humane AI pin will, so you're fine.
Fair enough. But I was looking through the Photos app in iOS 18.1 Beta 2, Dev Beta 2, and if you go down to the Utilities section, they have kind of the areas like hidden, recently deleted, duplicates, and I don't think this was in the Photos app for iOS 17, but there's also things like documents, QR codes, handwriting, illustrations, map, and it is separating things out. And so you could go to like the QR code section and it shows you all the pictures that has a QR code. And I imagine that, Apple Intelligence hopefully will parse that, but also if you try to search for like something you've handwritten and took a picture of, like that it would bring that up. So that wasn't in iOS 17, right?
No, but you know what was in iOS 17 is one that said screenshots.
Right, there is a screenshots feature for sure.
But I'm saying I don't see it in that list.
Well, that's because there's another list called media types, and that has things
so it's less confusing. This is good.
Yeah, that has the screen recordings and screenshots feature. So anyway, a little spoiler, a little teaser. I actually have a shortcuts video coming out soon about like how you can delete your screenshots and screen recordings automatically on a daily basis. So anyway, just stay tuned to the channel for that. But anyway.
That's good.
So that's the Google Screenshots feature. I somewhat agree. I think this is a good feature. I didn't know that it was going to move all the screenshots actually to this app and not keep it in your photo library.
I don't know that for sure. I'm trying to be clear. I didn't read it closely enough to know that, but I think so.
Okay, that might be fake news. But anyway.
I mean, it does say Pixel Screenshots makes organizing, recalling, and using your screenshots a breeze.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think the feature that I have stronger feelings about, interesting feelings about, is the Magic Editor, which is the Photos editor on the Pixel. Now, Google was already doing things like the Magic Erase, like search a subject or whatever, circle it and make it go away, whatever. But now it's going even farther and really putting basically AI generative tools in the camera app. So not only can you remove subjects and move subjects, but straight up just add stuff to the photo. And like, here's an example where they made this child look like they're in front of a volcano with an aurora borealis behind it, where in reality it was just in the backyard of their house. And okay, I don't know if making it that easy is great. And two things on it. One, they did a live demo at the event, and the demo, he was asking, put a hot air balloon in the background of this picture. And one of the generative images really looked like a potato, not a hot air balloon, and that was pretty hilarious. So there was that. But then I also saw Sebastian DeWitt. He's on the team at Halide, the camera app, and Keynote, the video app. And he said this quote, like making believe, like this might happen in the future. And it's a kid talking to his parent. And he's like, wow, Mom, I can't believe these photos of my third birthday. Can't believe there were all these flowers and hot air balloons. And then this is the parent responding, no, sweetie, that was just something we added for no reason on our Pixel phone. And I think that is a good encapsulation of like, what are the ramifications of significantly changing the photos, not just removing a subject or making someone smile like the Best Take feature, but literally replacing everything in the photo. And maybe there's a revert feature. Like maybe you can just say like, show me the original. But a lot of times, like, people don't do that. At least, maybe I'm not in touch with normal people, but I feel like if someone's showing photos on their phone, they're just scrolling through the photos and like, look at all these photos. And if they made edits to it, like they're just showing whatever is there. And if like 10 years from now, you're showing pictures of your child's 8th birthday and he's sitting in front of a volcano, I imagine family members would be like, what is this? Where did you guys go for his birthday? And I don't know if that's great, Jason. How do you
think about it like this, Stephen. This is for real. There are 3 scenarios. Yes. I think there's probably 27 or something, but we're just going to cover 3 of them this morning. One, when you take pictures of your kids, it's because you want to remember the way you felt at that moment in an experience. So you're not going to do this. That's not like for people who want to just remember stuff. Like this is a fake demo is what I'm trying to say. Like they really did it, but it's not a real thing that anyone's going to do this. So if you're trying to do like, no one's going to be deceived by that, except for the scenario 2, which are people who take photos and post them on Instagram, and none of that's real anyway. Literally nothing that influencers post on Instagram is real life. Like 0% of it. I know I just made some people mad, and I'll take your 5-star review and your hate at the same time.
You can leave a hate comment. Just leave it under a 5-star review and have a podcast.
5-star review.
But wait. I want to push back on just that one point, because I understand what you're saying. Like normal people, whatever, like just keep the photo. You were a photographer in a previous life.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, someone who is not a photographer, it will oftentimes ask for changes to a picture that they think would make it better, but in the end makes it look horrible. Whether it's like cranking the saturation or doing weird things to the lighting. And I feel like the thing that was holding all those pictures from becoming terrible back then were photographers being like, I'm not doing that. Or
right.
like, that's not possible. And to now give these tools to people where you literally just snap the photo and then tap the sky and say, make Aurora Borealis or whatever. I feel like that is like people probably will do that, I would think, right?
Okay, so yes. Although as terrible as that photo was, it's still better than a lot of the things people asked you to do when you're a photographer with their wedding photos and stuff. It's like, anyway.
What was the weirdest request you ever got? Do you remember? Like,
well, I mean, it was pretty regular to be like, could you add in this relative who couldn't come to the wedding into this group photo, and then they send you this like dark photo of the person in like scrubs or something, and I'm like, could they have at least dressed up and taken a photo before I added them to this? Come on, it's like weird. But the weirdest one I think was when I was asked to Photoshop in a couple of people who wouldn't come to a wedding because there was like a whole divorce situation. So I was actually given a wedding photo that involved one of the people that were getting married at their previous wedding, and I'm like, so the request itself was just like there were so many layers of weird. But the third scenario of this is people who are just having fun. Like that photo that they showed a test of is just fun, and it's totally fine. And I think that that's okay. And you're right that people will like. I guess my point is we shouldn't worry about those scenarios. Like this is not nearly as big of a thing as like wasn't it the Samsung Flip? That Samsung now has a deal to give them to police officers as body cameras, and literally the feature that they like touted for that device is that it will like remove or add things to photos. Is that really what the police should be carrying around to capture evidence? Like that's a way bigger problem.
AI generated body cam. There's no problem there.
Right. No. You've seen what's so. Why does the suspect have 7 fingers? This is the weirdest. We're looking. What was the movie with Harrison Ford? The Fugitive. They're looking for the one-armed man. Now we're looking for the man with 7 fingers on his left hand. Yeah. What could go wrong? But anyway, I think this is like.
You think it's okay?
I think that's stupid, but I think it's fine. People like there are a lot of stupid things that people enjoy, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I get like doing something fun with your kids. Like, I totally get that. Like, let me take a picture of you in the backyard, and then we can make it look like you're a Jedi. I get that part. But people just take things too far. Like they're just like, let me do this to every picture. And I guess the part that I think about is when you look at really old pictures, like your parents' physical photo albums from like decades ago, or you just look at pictures like the oldest pictures in your camera roll. Some of the best stuff about those pictures is the weird stuff in the background. Like I have a picture from my freshman year of college where it's me and my friends in the dorm room. And like, yeah, it's cool to see me and them at that time, but also like my Dell Tower PC is in like the background on the desk, and like the printer that I had, and like all this weird stuff, like the physical photos I had on my desk you could see in the back of this picture. And I feel like those, if you start removing that kind of stuff regularly to just focus on the subject, I do feel like you will have lost something years from now, because I don't know, that's like part of the pictures, like the weird stuff in the background. And I don't know. That's the part that I'm like, okay, yeah, have fun. Like I'm not saying don't have fun. Like have fun, make yourself look like a Jedi or a Sasquatch or whatever. But don't do it to every photo. You know what I mean?
And I agree with you. Yeah. I just come down on the side of I don't think anyone should do it, but I also just don't care if they do. If that makes sense. Like, can I have those two positions in my head? It's like fine.
I get it. Well, so this is another feature that I have less strong feelings about, which is the Add Me feature. And this is where you can take a photo. Let's say you have, 3 people. They all want to be in a photo together because they're on a trip, but someone has to take the picture. And you don't want to ask a random stranger, which I do feel like maybe we'll lose something in those interactions because it's one of like the few human interactions that's like socially acceptable. But anyway, so the Add Me features, you basically take a picture with some of the subjects in the frame, and then you go to the Add Me feature, and it will show like a ghost image of the subjects you already took a photo of. The third person can now swap out with one of them, and the phone will kind of like tell you like where to stand, and then it will add you into the photo. And honestly, like, I'm down with this feature. I feel like this is less, like, I understand like that photo didn't happen, quote unquote, but if there was someone who could have been there to take the photo, it would have happened. I feel like this is less heinous than like the generative stuff.
Yeah, and this, no one is going to miss. Okay, that's like, when I was photographing things, taking photographs for a living.
Yeah, well, now you're a writer. You're a professional writer now. Great with words.
It's obvious. Yes,
you're photographing things.
But no one would confuse we're taking a portrait with you captured a moment that just happened, and it's the you captured a moment that just happened that is like the problem. This is just you're making a portrait, which is completely a staged event anyway, right? Like those people weren't just randomly in that position when someone came by with the camera and took the picture. So this doesn't bother me at all. Like, did that moment happen? No, but it wasn't a moment that happened. It was people standing in front of, in this case, we're looking at a photo on the website. And MKBHD in his video had a really good demo of this. Like, he did it with two people from his studio. Like, they just showed how it worked. I think, like, it's great. Like, no one is going to come back later and be like, oh, you three weren't actually standing there together. It's like, well, we were in the same space. Like, this is just, I feel like, logistics at this point.
Right. I do feel like there's one picture that Google is demoing. It's 3 friends. And it's like, there are 2 friends in the first picture and 1 in the second. I mean, you know how you feel a certain way about that. But
ooh, how do you decide who's the third one? Is that what you're trying to say? Also, do these people not have like Pixel watches? Could they not have just set the phone down on a rock and done it?
You don't always have a rock or a tripod. You know, we were literally when we were in New York a couple weeks ago. I tried. I wanted to take a photo of the family we were visiting all together, and I didn't have a tripod or whatever. So they had this like ping pong table, and I tried to like precariously like stack things. And listen, it's a pain in the neck. You know, this if it was this feature on iPhone, I might do that.
I use my watch to take a photo exactly once every single year, and it's when I'm in Florida for Thanksgiving, because there's literally 45 people who come to Thanksgiving dinner, and we set up the phone, and I use my thing, and I just tap it, and once a year.
Yeah. I same. I do it like once or twice a year, and it's cool. It's cool when it happens. But all right, the last thing about the Pixel event, and you had an article about this. I want to hear your thoughts. But Google did just outright talk about Apple multiple times, call it out. The one obvious part that I saw was when they were talking about these generative images. They were like, now that RCS is on the iPhone, you'll be able to send these in high quality to your friends. And I was like, I guess Google just promoted RCS on the iPhone. Like, that's cool for Apple, I guess. But like, yeah, I thought that was interesting. Oh, we have to talk about the watch in a second. But
okay,
you had mentioned a couple other times they called it out directly. Do you remember?
Yeah, so because in that case they did call it out directly. Several of the other times were not quite as direct, but it was pretty obvious what they're talking about. And the Verge actually has a really good article that's like every time that Google sort of put Apple on blast. And I wrote about really one of those times that I think is especially problematic for Apple, which is Google basically pointed out that they don't need to send your data to a third party to do Gemini stuff, right? Whereas Apple can do certain things on device, and then they do certain things in the private cloud compute. But for anything else, you're going to get a prompt to say, do you want to send this to ChatGPT? Or in the future, Apple has made it pretty clear they'd like to use other, LLMs like Gemini or Perplexity or Anthropic, Claude, whatever.
Yeah.
So Google just basically sort of poked at Apple in a spot where I think highlights that, did Apple really need to do the ChatGPT thing anyway? Like, is it that hard to just open the ChatGPT app? No, it's really not. It's a little bit more streamlined, but it really is. It's kind of the same thing with the Google search deal, which we talked about the DOJ thing, where it's like you're getting all this money for sending your users to what you have said. Like, I've written many times about how Apple, like Tim Cook gave a speech in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago in front of the International Association of Privacy Professionals, I think it was. And he literally just talks about, we're different than the big tech companies that just want to slurp up all of your data so they can show you ads. That's not an exact quote, but it's basically the sentiment of what he said. And who do you think those tech giants are? It's Google and Meta. Like, that's who he's talking about.
And Amazon, yeah.
But I mean, so then you're going to send in, like, OpenAI does not exactly have a stellar reputation at this point for respecting anyone's rights. And
and we have a story in a few moments about ChatGPT, but I think it is odd, and surely I don't know how many years it'll be. 5 years from now, like, there will be no third-party integration. Like, it'll just be Apple Intelligence all the way down. And that the generative part, one of the reasons I kept the 18.1 beta on my phone is because once Image Playgrounds and Genmoji launches, I really want to see, like, how far will Apple let you go in image creation?
Not very, but yeah.
Not very, which, side note, Grok, which is the XAI, opened their image generator. There are some crazy... Grok will just let you generate pretty much whatever, and it is not great. Like, one of the images I saw was someone generated Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in an airplane cockpit with the Twin Towers on fire, like, in the distance.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a terrible... Like, that's not great. That's not good. And anyway, with the amount of AI-generated stuff I see shared on Facebook, like, information, I don't know. But surely one day, like the Google Maps integration and YouTube being a default app on the original iPhone, I have to imagine that the ChatGPT integration is not, like, forever. I mean, do you think it's forever?
Except for, I mean, you'll know it's forever or not if you are able to upgrade to ChatGPT Pro or whatever they call it within an interface within Apple, because they're taking 30% of that subscription then.
Well, and I think you can. I think they did say that you can. Well, you can log in with your ChatGPT.
Right. No, I'm saying right now you can use it just for free. And there will come a time in the future, and I think it will happen as soon as there's multiple choices for users, when you will then be offered the opportunity to do an in-app subscription to whatever the paid tier is for either Gemini or for ChatGPT or whatever it is. That's the only reason ChatGPT could possibly be wanting to do this distribution deal. Like that, why else would they be doing this? They're paying for all of these queries. Apple's not paying for them. They're paying for all this compute to do all these things. There has to be an upside for them, and that has to be that eventually they're going to offer the opportunity to upgrade to their paid tier, and Apple's going to take 30%.
Right. That's sticky.
Like, this is so obvious.
The 30%, man. That's okay. So I wanted two other things before we move on from Google. I forgot to mention the Pixel Buds Pro 2, which
you didn't forget. You just didn't mention them.
Well,
it's fine.
I wanted to mention it for one reason. Like, they're trying to compete with the AirPods Pro. They're $230. I've never heard Pixel Buds Pro 2. I don't know what they sound like. The one feature I thought was interesting was you can, like, twist it to lock it in for a more secure fit, because it has this, like, little tab or whatever that'll hold on to your ear better. That's a good feature, because I feel like the AirPods Pro 2, I have to go with the Comply foam tips so they don't fall out of my ear as much. Do you do that?
I just use the stock stuff.
Do they fall out, though?
I mean, no. I mean, I always have an anxiety attack when I am wearing them and I go into the bathroom and I'm like, what if this falls out into the toilet?
Well, yeah. Well,
that'd be the worst case scenario.
For me, it's my main activity is grocery shopping, and so when I'm wearing AirPods Pro grocery shopping, like, they always slowly fall out if I use the stock silicone tips, but the Comply foam tips, they're like earplug material, and they stay in way better. So anyway.
I thought you were going to talk about the Gemini integration into these buds.
Oh, sure, yeah, you could talk to Gemini.
Yeah,
that's it, right?
I mean, you without having to, like, basically use your phone. So yeah.
So it's like, but if your phone's not anywhere near, like, you could still talk to Gemini?
I mean, it says without, quote, taking out your phone, which, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not. I mean, none of these earbuds do anything if they're not connected to a phone. But
Let me look at footnote 2 down here. Gemini mobile app. Yeah, so you don't have to take your phone out, but it's still using your phone for the Gemini model.
Yep.
It's not built in. But one day you might have Gemini built in. But the other interesting feature I want to talk about from the Pixel Watch 3, which Pixel Watch 3, it comes in a new size, 45 millimeters, $400. The one feature I was like, they have a no pulse detection, which means if it detects that your pulse has stopped, which is not good, that it will dial emergency services automatically and use your location to find you. And I thought that was interesting. Like, there's obviously a bunch of other things that have to be a part of that. Like, if you take your watch off, that it knows your watch is off and you're not just like pulse 0, but that kind of stuff. And I'm false positives. I'm curious how how that will work, but I do think that's maybe a good feature. Like curious that Apple, who has like fall detection and will alert you if your heart rate drops below a certain level, and that's actually saved lives. And like it will dial 911 if it detects you have fallen and you don't tell it to not dial 911 in like 10 seconds.
Right.
The pulse 0 thing, like I don't know. That seems like a good feature. I feel like Apple should add that. What do you think?
I mean, I think that's an interesting feature. There feels like there's got to be a reason Apple hasn't done it yet, because I can't imagine no one at Apple has had that thought, especially with crash detection and fall detection.
Right.
But I will say, fall detection, like there's like times when you like stand up and walk around a corner and it's like it looks like you've taken a hard fall, and I'm like, I know I'm not as nimble as I used to be, but I just stood up. That's it. Like
you get up from the dinner table. It looks like you took a fall there.
There was no fall involved. It's like, I mean, I could understand if you like Steven smash your hand into the the threshold every time you walk through the door. Yeah, door frame. That's different. It would but it's like I didn't do anything that resembled a fall. Why do you think that I fell?
Every time you sit down in your car, it looks like you might have fallen.
Right. I think that what the Apple Watch really needs is kind of how it has the warning if it's too loud, and it's like increased exposure to this time or this volume level over time will damage your ears. What it needs to do is like, you need to relax a little when you sit down, buddy, because it seems like you've fallen. You're going to break your tailbone.
Yeah. Slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say the fall detection, it does get set off at random times. My son was wearing his Apple Watch when we were at the beach a couple months ago, and it was a little wavy. And it definitely had the fall thing like pop up, and it was like, it looks like you've fallen. And like, because we were in the water, the Apple Watch doesn't respond as well to touch, because he was like trying to cancel the SOS thing. He was like, I'm not falling. So he did cancel it. No police came. But I still remember, I don't know, I've told the story before, I don't know if on this podcast, but there's also the feature on the iPhone where if you, I don't think it's hold the side button and volume up, or you click it 5 times, or that it will call 911 automatically and just like send emergency services to your current location. And I remember several years ago, my dad was like gardening in the backyard, and he had his iPhone in his back pocket, and it was in such a way that it was like squeezing the phone. And he was just in the backyard doing whatever, and the police came to the door. And they were like, we got a call.
He swatted himself is what happened.
He swatted himself. And so, yeah, I mean, if that stuff's already built into the devices, I feel like, the no pulse thing.
I actually hate that feature, that if you just keep squeezing your phone, it does that. Because if for some reason this has happened to me twice in the last, I don't know how long, 2 months, where I'll pick my phone up and it's in standby mode on a charger, and the screen just doesn't turn on. It just, whatever reason, won't turn on. So I'm like, I need to restart it. Yeah. Well, restarting your iPhone is like, there is some weird convoluted combination of up, down, up, turn it around 3 times and spit or something. But you used to just be able to squeeze it and hold it until it shut off, and then you'd feel a little, haptic response, and then you could turn it back on. You do that now, and a siren is going to go off, and police are showing up at your house. It's like, I was just trying to restart my phone, man. Just leave me alone.
It is true. So I'm looking at this. If you go to the iPhone settings, it's in the emergency SOS part of the settings. Press and hold the side button and either volume button to make an emergency call. And then you can also do call with 5 button presses. So if you rapidly press the side button 5 times, a countdown begins and an alarm sounds, and the iPhone will call emergency services. And you can also have call quietly enabled. So it'll do that emergency call and just not do anything, which if you have all that enabled, you might be calling 911 every day and they have no idea because it's just triggering it all the time.
Yeah, you're the little boy who cried iPhone. They're just going to stop responding. It's like, he's just got his phone in his pocket again.
I think so. Actually, another quick story. We set the fire alarm off at a friend's house because we were cooking wings or whatever. Fire department came and they were like, listen, you do this again, you get charged like $500 or whatever, like if it's a false alarm. So don't cry wolf when it comes to
stop burning your wings, man.
Yeah, stop burning the wings. So we didn't know it was the first time using an air fryer. Anyway, so are you? I don't think I'm going to be getting a Pixel to review because I don't think anybody who follows me cares. But are you going to get one of these? Do you review them? Did you review? Because you have a Fold, right?
That's a Galaxy Fold.
Okay.
I've never reviewed a Pixel Fold, although I would like to. But I mean, I will. I've asked, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, if I'd have gone to the event, maybe it would have increased my chances. But
listen, I'm not going to come out to your event. I'm not really going to watch it live. But if you want to send me a phone.
But I mean, honestly, like, that's not a terrible deal for that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no,
first of all, they gave interviews to Joanna Stern and gave devices to MKBHD before the event anyway. It's like, if you're going to do that, what do I need to fly all the way out there for?
That's true. MKBHD's video literally dropped as the event started.
And this is the second thing in a row, right? The Samsung event, the same thing happened.
Same thing happened,
and then this one. It's like, so should I just watch his?
I know. I did have that thought of like, his video is probably going to be it's shorter.
I mean, he has more subscribers than they do. So
well, that's fair enough. He almost has as many subscribers as Apple now. He's approaching 20 million. But anyway. All right, so there was some other little news. That was the Google stuff. If you want us to talk about the Pixel phones, let us know. We'll petition Google. But Patreon, they announced, well, not announced, but they said that coming this fall, Apple, in November, the in-app purchase system is going to change and actually start taking a 30% cut from supporters who want to support a creator, and they do it directly within the app. So there is a Patreon app for iPhone. In it, you can do all the Patreon stuff, communicate with people that you support or whatever. But you can also start supporting someone monetarily directly in the app. And up until this point, Patreon has lived in kind of this nebulous zone where, Apple has certain products where they won't take the cut, like physical products, which is why the Amazon app exists. Because you could buy all those physical devices. But you can't buy ebooks or Kindle books in the Amazon app because a digital product, Apple will take a 30% cut. And here, it seems as though now they're going to start taking it from, this is not a digital product nor a physical product, but it has now gone out of the gray area, and Apple says, we are going to start taking a 30% cut from those new memberships, which means less money to the creator and also to Patreon, but also to the creator as a whole. And so Patreon is trying to say, like, let's can we do something about this and maybe not? Can we not change this?
And it's more nefarious than that because Apple also said if you don't offer subscription, you have to continue offering subscriptions in your app or you cannot have the app. So the option of saying, you know what, we'll just not offer subscriptions in the app anymore. Apple's like, no. You can't do that change to try to avoid, paying this 30% fee, or we will just we'll just turn off your app. You have to offer subscriptions and you have to use in-app purchase so that we get the 30% cut. And you say they've lived in a sort of a gray area. In my article that I wrote this morning, I equated it to Uber, right? Uber is a platform with an app, and people come onto that app as drivers, right? Those are the content creators. Ish. Yeah. And then there are people who need a ride who are like their supporters, and they pay money to Uber, and Uber sends money to the driver, and the driver does a thing. Patreon is a platform that allows people to do a thing. In this case, it's like make YouTube videos or write books or whatever it might be, write a newsletter, some kind of thing. And people can support that by paying money to Patreon, and then Patreon sends the cut to the creator at this point. Right. The only difference between those two things is that Apple looks at making YouTube videos as having a 100% margin, and so they see an area where they can extract value, whereas driving an Uber doesn't scale quite in the same way. But I think that that's the wrong way to look at this for two reasons. One is essentially they're paying you to do a thing, which is make a YouTube video, or for us like make a podcast or something. Like we're still doing a thing just because we are more efficient and able to do it for 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 million people at a time, whereas the Uber driver can literally only drive 4 people at a time, one ride at a time. I feel like that's the wrong thing for Apple to be doing. And if they were going to do that, what they should be doing is taking 30% from Patreon's cut, because Patreon is who has the app on the App Store. And I was listening, I think it might have been Ben Thompson was talking about the real ridiculous thing about this is that most Patreon creators would qualify for the small business program because they have less than $1 million a year in revenue. So they'd only pay 15% instead of the 30%. But Apple is basically just basing it on Patreon. So everyone will pay 30%. So this is one of the worst things. This is almost as bad as the little privacy pop-up that Apple started putting out there in the new version of macOS that asks you every single week if you want to continue allowing apps to screen record or whatever. Yeah. This is bad because Apple has spent decades talking about how much they are fans of creators, right? And how much they build things. And my closing line for this article was that, I've always thought of Apple's catchphrase, "We can't wait to see what you do with it," as the company's way of telling creators that it's proud to build the tools that they use to make art or work or whatever it is that they do. Mm-hmm. But really, it just seems like what Apple means is we'll be watching to see what you do with this so that we can see if there's an opportunity to extract some value.
And the thing, too, is for creators. And I think what you said is a really great point. Like, if the Apple Small Business Program, when it comes to in-app, the cut is if you make under $1 million a year, Apple will only take 15%. And like Jason was saying, a vast, probably 99% of creators on Patreon are making way less than $1 million
from Patreon, right?
Through their Patreon supporters, and so should not be paying 30%. But also, man, I have a couple Patreon pages, one for movies on the side, and others, and like I've also supported many other Patreon pages, and many make public how many support those pages. It is hard to have that be a significant source of income as a creator. And if you're trying to be like a full-time creator with whatever that is, like not only is it hard to gain those subscriptions, but it's not that much money usually. Even for the bigger creators, like that's not usually their main quote-unquote biggest source of revenue. It's usually still sponsorships or whatever. And so to to not attack, but to target that business of all things, like, it's one thing for Apple to make Spotify mad and Netflix or whatever, but like Patreon specifically, like that for the creators who are on Patreon, like that this feels dirty to me. Like, and I don't, and because I'm also on the Patreon app and like I don't have a ton of subscribers, so it's not going to like affect me very much, but man. And also apparently if you want to continue offering subscriptions to your members, it has to be a subscription and not one of these like one-time deals. Because like Patreon does have the option of like giving a one-time gift to creators. So if you want to just like give $20 and maybe a creator is like, send $10 my way and you'll get a shout out, or $10 and I'll answer a question live on the air. Like there's not going to be that option in the app because Apple doesn't have like a mechanism for that, and they're going to force subscriptions. So if you want to still offer people to be able to support you directly in the Patreon app, you have to offer a monthly subscription or annual. And it's like, this is not great.
It's not great at all.
Yeah. So anyway, well, it remains to be seen. That change is happening in November. We'll see if Apple changes anything between now and then. But also some changes with Spotify because...
Nope, not Spotify.
Not Spotify.
Sonos.
Well, no, I want to say, so the Spotify pricing.
Oh, okay. Because you said in the beginning that Spotify was going to revert their app, and I was worried you were about to go down this road again.
Oh, did I say that?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not being critical. I was just like, hang on, I'm going to stop you now. But okay,
shoot, that was a mistake at the beginning. Sonos started to revert their app, but Spotify actually, because of changes in the EU, they can now actually show pricing in the Spotify app. You still can't like change your plan in the Spotify app. But because of all the like the DMA and the EU regulations on iOS, Spotify is celebrating the fact that it can at least show pricing in the app.
Yep.
Which, and Spotify has this whole page where they're like still very mad about all the things Apple and not allowed to do or whatever. So, but a small movement there. They can show pricing. No links. Can't do no links to like sign up for that plan, but they can show it, which is something. And one other thing that some of the laws have been changing, this is Apple's been doing this weird thing in the newsroom where they do like quick reads, where it's like not a full article, but it's like this mini article. But it's hard to get the URL, so I'm not crazy about it. And there's like no pictures. But anyway, this was in the Apple newsroom, but that in 18.1, once that comes out, third-party apps and developers will be able to access the NFC contactless payment system in an iPhone, the secure element, which is where like those payments come from, and be able to integrate that in their app for tap to pay, basically. So for right now, if you wanted to pay with iPhone, you have to use Apple Pay, you have to go to the Wallet app, you have to double click and all that kind of stuff. And coming in 18.1, it is opening up a little more where third parties can build those kinds of tap things in it. So I imagine someone like PayPal or whatever, could just start doing a tap to pay directly in the PayPal app if you want to pay from your like PayPal account instead of going directly to the Apple Wallet app. And so that opens up some of the things. Again, just a slight more open thing, but that's that.
You didn't mention the one thing.
What's that?
Which no one knows the answer to this yet, but it says that one of the requirements for this is that you have to pay fees. What does that mean, Stephen? Anytime Apple talks, it says in that bottom paragraph, it says it requires that you have this entitlement and pay the associated fees. What does that mean?
Fees.
Is Apple going to charge people to offer this NFC? I don't know. It's going to be real interesting. I don't know. I literally have no idea what it means because there's no more information.
There's no more information on it. Doesn't Apple get a cut of every Apple Pay transaction?
I think so because they are the merchant provider,
the processor or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, now the app that actually might revert is the Sonos app. No, it's good. And this Sonos app thing has just been so wild because such an utter failure. Now listen, I have the new Sonos app because I have a bunch of Sonos stuff. Like, it's not great, but the level of bad at which people believe this to be, so much so that Sonos is considering just relaunching the old app. And The Verge had an exclusive report that Sonos is going to lay off 100 employees because of this app crisis, and apparently affecting sales, I guess, of Sonos speakers. And so they have to lay off 100 employees. That's really unfortunate, but my goodness, what a fail.
That is a brutal app redesign right there.
Yeah. I just don't, to have to revert to the old app. And, I don't know why this thread got a bunch of views, but I posted last week, how does a company, listen, Humane, they released a product that wasn't great, but also they have a small team, and you can have that kind of bubble effect, whatever. Sonos is long-standing, big company, has already sold millions of products. How do you not test it more internally?
And you're the premium audio product, at the consumer level, and your reason for success is that you offered a superior experience. Right? And then you release an app that just set that all on fire.
Right. And it's just amazing to me. Wouldn't you make all of your Sonos employees live with the new app for a month and get some feedback or something? But apparently not. Apparently that's very strange. So, yeah, they might revert back to the old app. Honestly, I just AirPlay usually. Because the AirPlay works with all Sonos stuff. But I also get it. It's more annoying to manage multiple speaker groups in AirPlay, and it can be a little more delayed. Like you tap a Sonos speaker and it's is it going to go? Is it connecting? But anyway, yeah, Sonos. Also, the Department of Justice, this is not official yet, but the New York Times had a report about some of the solutions, quote unquote, that the Department of Justice might be coming up with in regards to the Google violating antitrust law, which that verdict, it was decided. A judge said Google is violating the law. But now comes what does the DOJ do about it? What are the ramifications? And so apparently they're considering breaking up Google, possibly breaking out Chrome and Android from Google's business, and I guess making that a separate company. There's also talk about Google not being able to do the exclusive deals with Apple for the Google search thing. None of this is final yet. These are just some of the, ideas being tossed around in the Department of Justice. But I read Gruber's article because breaking up Google and breaking out Chrome and Android, it's not really where Google makes its money anyway. It gets data for its search where it does make money, but that seems like a strange choice. I would think Google's search would be the thing that has to be broken out, but I don't know.
Yeah, generally, the remedy phase, there's two different options here. One is behavioral. So that would be you can't enter into this contract with Apple. That's a behavioral thing, or you have to put up a browser choice, although that would be a behavioral remedy imposed on Apple because of this, right? So those are behavioral remedies. Then there are structural remedies, which is what the government pursued against Microsoft but didn't get it, where they wanted to break apart Microsoft.
Right.
The what is he, an assistant attorney general for antitrust who oversees the antitrust department at the Department of Justice, Jonathan Cantor, tends to prefer structural remedies, and so that seems to be the reason why there's all these stories that this is probably the direction that they're going to pursue. But remember, the Department of Justice doesn't get to decide, and what seems like the play here is that the Department of Justice is going to ask for the most that it can ask for, and then Google's going to come back and say, how about we just do this and try to settle it? Like really, like that's probably what's going to happen. But if the Department of Justice comes in and they're like, maybe you just shouldn't like enter into these contracts or whatever it might be, like that's a much like there's where do you go from there, right? Because Google's going to anyway. So that seems to be where most of these stories are coming from, is that the Department of Justice tends to want to prefer structural remedies. So at some point they'll probably settle that phase, and that was like people forget, like the Microsoft, the most linked. The longest part of that whole thing was the remedies, and they actually like had a settlement, and that settlement is what actually like went up through like the Supreme Court. Like it was a long drawn out process. And so it took a couple years for them to get to this point. Who knows how long it's going to take for them to actually get through this.
Right. The next one, my son actually sent me this article. This is Ars Technica. ChatGPT unexpectedly began speaking in a user's cloned voice during testing.
Turn it off.
This is in the realm of creepy AI stuff.
Just shut it down.
This is apparently a ChatGPT like worker, someone working on ChatGPT that was like interacting with ChatGPT and in like a voice conversation, and then all of a sudden ChatGPT began responding audibly in the person's cloned voice. So like as you could clone your voice with things like 11 Labs or whatever, I guess it stopped using its ChatGPT audible voice and started talking back as the other person, which would be incredibly creepy if that actually happened. And it's like they have a bunch of explanations about like why this was, and you know, errors in like the prompt or whatever, or like behavior, and it's like, I don't know about that, man. I don't know if I want if ChatGPT starts talking back in my voice and I've never trained it intentionally, that's a problem.
Yeah, there's no explaining that you can do at that point that will make it okay. Like, no, you've already lost that argument.
Right, like the training thing. Sheesh. Yeah. Anyway, well, that was fun. Well, thanks for that. And yeah, hopefully ChatGPT doesn't turn into Skynet. That's what we all hope. And then, now this last article, before we get to a personal tech, I don't know if you saw this, Jason. This, like, I had to really read all about this before I understood it to be real, because it sounded just like a weird. I just didn't think it was real for a while.
That's because it takes place in Florida.
Listen, yes, it does. That is true. So apparently, a couple were staying at a Disney resort. The wife was severely allergic to nuts, I believe peanuts, and so they looked on the Disney resort for Disney restaurants that was more catering to nut allergies. The couple has dinner at this restaurant. They let them know about the allergies. Apparently, someone at the restaurant got it wrong and served nuts to the wife, and she unfortunately died there on the resort, like on Disney property. It or at least passed away from what happened in the restaurant. That's very sad, terrible. So now there's a court case where the husband is taking Disney to court, suing them for obvious reasons, and Disney wants to dismiss and not go to court for this because in the terms, like agreements and whatever, when you sign up for Disney Plus, the streaming service, and when this man bought a ticket to Epcot for the trip, there is apparently some clause in those agreements that talk about like non-arbitration or whatever, and that like you won't go to court with Disney. I don't know the exact thing, but anyway, Disney wants to dismiss it based on that clause in the terms of agreement for when he signed up for Disney Plus, the streaming service where you stream stuff to your TV. And that just, I mean, what?
Yeah.
Why would you even, like, you're Disney. Just give millions of dollars to this person. It won't matter to your bottom line, but instead you fight it because of a terms of service for Disney Plus? That seems wild to me.
This is what happens when lawyers get to make decisions, right? Lawyers should just advise companies on things, but they should not get to make these types of decisions, because this is just, I mean, it's stupid. Like, maybe it's legally, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, the reality is, because arbitration though still can have the same binding outcome as a court case, right? It's just, it's much more difficult for consumers to deal with, and they always you have to pick an arbitrator and, you know, whatever. Like, but it's just so dumb. Yeah,
I don't understand. And so there will be like a settling outside of court if this even goes through. It's just this leaves the case out of court.
Well, yeah. So like if there's a forced arbitration agreement, they would remove the case from court into an arbitration proceedings. Right. But if they reach a settlement in the arbitration, or if the arbitrator found for the plaintiff, it still has the same force as like a legal judgment. It's just a much more cumbersome process for consumers that don't have all this money for lawyers. So
I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's dumb.
And also, like, one of the arguments that I think the husband's lawyers is making is like that clause, at least for the Disney Plus thing, it was like through a link in the terms of service, through a second link, and then that's where the clause was.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it's not plainly anyway, this is the terms of service that we all agree to. Everyone. I mean, this is part of doing business.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna watch Disney Plus, don't do anything that could get you hurt. Yeah,
that's just so crazy. But anyway, all right, let's raise the mood, Jason.
Okay,
let's do a personal tech question.
What are we gonna do?
I want to know, what is your nightstand charger?
Oh my!
If you say MagSafe Duo, we're turning off the podcast.
Permanently, not just for today. Just we're done.
We're done.
I'm fired. No, it's some Anchor round tube like thing that has the thing that flips up on the top.
Oh, you got the tube thing.
Do you know? Is that the official name? I can look it up.
Yeah, it's the Anchor 3-in-1 tube thing. Yeah,
it's not a 3-in-1. It's a 2-in-1.
Not a 3-in-1.
It's not a 3-in-1 nightstand charger.
I'm literally searching Anchor 2-in-1 tube thing. That is what I searched.
Good luck with that.
I think I might have found it. I think it's a 2-in-1 MagSafe. Oh, see, this is a.
It looks like the square. It looks like the 3-in-1, but it doesn't have the thing that slides out, and it's cylindrical. Cylindrical. It's a cylinder, not a cube.
I'm telling you, the photographer.
Yes, it's that one right there. That's exactly what I have. That's
the Anchor MagGo 623 2-in-1. Okay, so you do a 2-in-1. Now what? Now wait a minute. Is there no Apple Watch charger on here?
No.
Well, how do you charge your Apple Watch?
Also, the AirPods charger doesn't really work very well. It just beeps at you after a while. I just have one of the actual Apple Watch chargers plugged into the wall. It's fine.
What? Just the cable just laying there on your nightstand?
I know, it's horrifying. It works really well, though.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what? It works every time, and I don't have to have something that looks like Frankenstein sitting on my nightstand. So
you don't have to have something that looks like Frankenstein. There's so many great options out. Oh, my God.
There are zero great options. They all look like some
I literally have like 18
thing.
videos on my channel about 3-in-1
I've watched all of
options.
them, and they all look stupid.
No, that is not true. Listen, oh, my goodness.
This is the end of our podcast, apparently.
Oh, my.
No.
I didn't realize it would be so controversial.
No,
Jason.
so there are reasons.
What
there
are
are reasons. Well, I don't take this charger with me anywhere, but I do. You have
I
the
wouldn't take it
MagSafe.
to my house.
What's wrong with it? Just because it doesn't charge an Apple Watch, what's wrong with it?
It doesn't charge your AirPods or your Apple Watch.
Well, actually, all I meant to say is that it's a little bit finicky. So when you open that piece up, underneath it is where you can put AirPods, and I have noticed that if you aren't precise about where you put the AirPods, I think it's actually more of an AirPods thing, an AirPods Pro actually, because if you put like one of the AirPods that have a not Pro version but that are magnetically charging, it works fine every time. But if I put my AirPods Pro, there's something about the way the magnets line up that after a while the AirPods will like beep at you, and then the stand like starts to like glow, and I think that means that you have 30 seconds to take them off before the house burns down.
I'd like to point out that the dark gray version is no longer available.
Okay, I have the dark gray version, so I'm glad I got in before the lock.
No, you shouldn't be glad you got in. I don't know what. No, don't. You need Jason.
I'm never going to buy one that has an Apple Watch charger sticking out the side of it.
Why?
Just so you know. I'm never going to do that.
Why
well,
not?
first of all, if you do that, you can't use nightstand mode on your Apple Watch.
False. I use nightstand mode all the time.
On your Apple Watch, it's facing up. How is that useful?
You have not watched every video on my channel because clearly you have not seen the best 3-in-1 charger
when I
that
say
is
that
available on the market right now. The 12 South 3-in-1 Deluxe.
That thing definitely looks like it will kill you in your sleep. I'm sorry.
What are you talking about?
Steven,
this is the worst of all the bad takes, Jason. This is one of the best chargers. Listen, watch on its side, nightstand mode.
It's $149, Steven.
You listen, I don't know if you know this, Jason, but you can use a charger more than once. You buy this once, and it literally lasts for years. Years I've been using this charger. You can put your phone sideways, it tilts, standby mode, watch nightstand, charges your AirPods, clean, low profile. I don't understand what you're doing over there, Jason.
Listen, when I said that I watched all your videos, what I mean is I click on them and go through the first ad break, and so that way you get your views.
Oh,
but
I appreciate that.
It's probably true that I haven't watched them all from start to finish because I do have 4 kids and a job. But I do try to support.
You would save a lot of time if you weren't finicky with that AirPods charger on that terrible. Listen, Anchor has some great chargers.
Do you know what I've never thought about in my entire life? I need a better way to charge my Apple Watch. I've never thought about that once.
Are you for real?
I never thought about it once.
Listen. I don't even know what to say right now. I don't understand. This is wow. Anyway, you should get a good 3-in-1 charger. I literally have like 18 sitting around here.
Just send me one and I'll test it for a couple weeks.
I'll decide which one to send you. Like I literally just got another one from a company to test because I keep making videos about them. So I got this one from Coolsil. Which they actually told me that's how you pronounce it. And
they'll definitely not set your house on fire. I do use the MagSafe Duo when I'm traveling, though. I still carry it in my bag, and I use it all the time when I'm traveling.
I'm down with the MagSafe Duo, but the nightstand situation, Jason, that is atrocious. I can't even. I'll send you 3-in-1. I'll find one around here to send one.
All right.
Anyway, listeners, let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, and let me know what charger you use on your nightstand or whatever you use to charge your devices at night. If you use Jason's horrible 2-in-1 plus a standalone Apple Watch cable just flying in the wind, you can still leave us a 5-star rating and review. You can let me know. But
if I plug the Apple Watch charger into my lamp, would that be worse?
That would be worse. Yeah,
I don't do that. Don't
do that. But this is the next Apple Pencil on the iPad debate. Let me know if you're doing the cables. Now I think Basic Apple Guy, he might be out there. He might actually use like the MagSafe puck on the end of a cable and the Apple. I don't know for sure. I'd love to hear from you, Basic. Let me know. But let us know. You can
also let us know. Hold on, sorry. Let us know, but then also talk to a normal person and ask them what they also do. I want to hear both of these things because our audience, I'm guessing, is going to be a little skewed towards technology. I think average people are probably like, I don't know, this cable came in the box and it works, so I'm just going to use it.
Well, but it doesn't. But I don't know.
All right.
Okay, anyway, well, let us know. I'm going to start a community post on this, too. So you can go to social.primarytech.fm, send us a picture of your nightstand charging situation, leave us a 5-star rating and review. You can do that there. You can also watch the show at youtube.com/@primarytechshow and support the show either in Apple Podcasts or directly at primarytech.fm. And you get bonus episodes, which we're going to talk about subscribe and save on Amazon. We were going to talk about that last week, I think.
Not to this podcast. You can't subscribe and save to this podcast on Amazon.
But you can subscribe.
Okay.
Well,
on Amazon?
Not on Amazon. Okay, good point. Good point. We don't have that yet. Listen, subscribe and save to this podcast, and we'll send you a good 3-in-1 charger every year. We'll just send you one.
Be careful. This is not binding.
This is not binding.
He lives in Florida, remember?
The last 10 seconds are a joke. Terms of service, you've not agreed to.
You agreed. You have to take us to arbitration to get us to...
No. But anyway, we're going to go record a bonus episode. If you want to listen to that, directly on Apple Podcast or primarytech.fm and click bonus episodes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.